All the motivation in the world won't get you very far if your goals aren't defined enough. You've probably heard of SMART goals, but I'm actually here to talk about SMART-E-R. And yes, those last two letters are just as important as the rest. I picked up this concept from Michael Hyatt, but added a managerial twist to make it much more applicable and relevant. Today, I'm going to give you some examples of what each of these concepts look like, so you have a clearer idea both of what to do and what not to do as you create your next objectives. We don't want to waste our time and energy on goals that are vague or impractical. So the SMART-E-R approach will help you turn your goals into great, achievable initiatives. So let's go through each letter in the SMART approach in more detail. Number one, specific. The more specific your goal is, the easier it will be to reach it. Not that it will be easy per se, but you will have a much clearer idea of what you want to achieve, which makes it much easier to focus. Here is a not great example of specific. I want to improve our team's performance. The problem here is that it's open-ended. It leads to a bunch of questions. Improve your performance, how? In what way? You won't be able to make much progress if your goal is not specific. Here is a good example of specific. I want to improve our cycle time. See the difference? In the second example, you've pinpointed what it is that you want to improve. You can actually make this goal even more specific, which is what we're going to look at next. Number two, measurable. It's hard to know if you're making any progress on your goal if there is no way to measure it. Besides knowing the what, we need to answer the question, how much? Here is not a great example of measurable. We want to improve our cycle time. Even though this is a good example of being specific, what is we want to improve, it doesn't tell you how far to reach. Here is a good example of measurable. I want to improve our cycle time by X%. The percentage amount you choose can vary depending on what's realistic for you and your team. The important thing here is that you have an exact number in mind so that you have something to measure against where you're currently. Number three, actionable. Let's continue building on the same example we started with. Here is a not great example of actionable. I want to improve our cycle time by X%. While it meets the first two criteria, you still don't have any plan for how to implement it. You have the what, improve your cycle time, the how much, by X%. Now you need to answer the question of how will we achieve that? And here is a good example of actionable. I want to improve our cycle time by X% by introducing WIP limits. Now your goal isn't just a wish, it's a solid game plan. Number four, risky. Let's talk about the X part of our example. You don't want to set the bar for your goal so low that you aren't stretching yourself. But on the other hand, you also don't want to aim for something unrealistic that only sets you and your team up for failure. The key is to find that sweet spot that pushes you out of your comfort zone without causing anxiety or burnout. Here is a not great example of risky. I want to improve our cycle time by 2%. 2% improvement is not really a challenging goal. In turn, that means you will experience a much lower payoff than if you pushed yourself a little harder. I want to improve our cycle time by 200% isn't a good goal either, since it's so extreme. You want to find the sweet spot in the middle. So here is a good example of risky. I want to improve our cycle time by 20%. The goal here is to stretch yourself just enough to experience growth and a little bit of discomfort, but not so much that you feel overwhelmed. It's a meaningful enough goal that you and your team will see real differences in outcome and feel real pride in being able to accomplish it. Number five, time key. We still have the question remaining of when we will accomplish this goal. You need to have a sense of the timeline. Here is not a great example of time key. I want to improve our cycle time by 20%. This is great, but how much time do you actually need to get there? Is it 2 months, perhaps 2 years? By when do you want to accomplish this goal? Here is a good example of time hit. I want to improve our cycle time by 20% by the end of Q2. Now we have a reasonable time frame that makes sense. It's risky enough to push you outside your comfort zone, but it's still realistic. Number 6, exciting. No matter how specific, measurable, actionable, risky, and time hit your goal is, if it doesn't create a sense of excitement in you and your team members, then you're going to be fighting an uphill battle to make it happen. You want a goal that will lead to some kind of reward. The more intrinsic, the better. Here is not a great example of exciting. When we accomplish this goal, we'll have a work party. I'm all about having fun as a team, but with an important goal, the motivation needs to be a bit deeper. It needs to have long-term beneficial consequences for the whole team. So here is a good example of exciting. When we accomplish this goal, we will be able to transition to a 4-day work week. Think about it. If you're able to improve your cycle time by 20% or more, you and your team will be achieving the same results in less time. That in turn means you can decrease your work week. The reward is the natural consequence of fulfilling your goal. Not to mention it's very exciting and motivating, which encourages you and your team to stick to making the goal happen. Number 7, it's important that your goal is aligned with your values. You want it to be something you and your team can feel good about, not something you find yourself questioning or even regretting when the going gets tough. Here is another great example of relevant. We're going to improve our cycle time by 20% by the end of Q2 by working 10 hours per day. Do you really want you and your team members to be up to odd hours every night and over the weekends? Is your ultimate goal worth that kind of sacrifice? This approach can quickly lead you and others to ask, is this really worth it? What's the point of this? And here is a good example of relevant. We're going to improve our cycle time by 20% by the end of Q2 by cutting out all the waste in our delivery process. In both examples, you're reaching to improve your cycle time, but the mentality is completely different. In the second example, you're setting yourself up to have a tremendous positive long-term impact on your business culture. It's relevant because it's true to your values and your vision.